So we're continuing our studies in the history of the origin of evil, and today we'll be specifically focusing in on the so-called fallen angels. Although the term fallen angels are not used in the Bible, it calls them the angels that sinned. And today we will study the history of these angels, which were led by a very prominent creature in God's creation called the Anointed Cherub. So the Bible provides us with a history of evil in creation and of various evil creatures that have played a significant role, first of all, in the birth of evil, and then in the growth and maturing of evil over several ages of time. God, who is the creator of all things and is absolute good in the Bible, does not have a beginning or an end, and he does not exist in time. However, evil does have a beginning and also an end, as do all evil creatures that have existed in the past and still exist in the present time. Evil is the exact opposite of God, and therefore the evil one, Satan, in this present age is the exact opposite of God. Satan means opposer, one who stands in opposition. His very purpose in existence is to be God's opposite, to be the darkness to God's light, to be the absolute evil, the perfect opposite of God's absolute good, to bring death, whereas God gives life, and so on. However, evil did not arise in Satan. Neither did he himself exist in the beginning of creation. God's creation began in perfection, and it was in one of God's perfect creatures of the race of angels called the Anointed Cherub that evil was first born, long before Satan even existed. As we study the history of evil, it will soon become apparent that evil cannot be studied and understood unless it is compared to good. In the Garden of Eden, only two trees were given names: the tree of life and the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. The purpose of the knowledge of evil is not to become evil, but to come to an understanding of good by comparing it to evil. Light can only be studied in a chamber of darkness. Life becomes valuable where death is present. The opposites of good and evil must be experienced together to gain the knowledge of both good and evil. The knowledge of one cannot come without knowing and experiencing the other. So, the real purpose of studying the history of evil is not to become evil, but to understand good and to value life, both symbolized by the two trees in the Garden of Eden. The history of evil is but an epoch in the greater history of creation. So let us briefly review all of the ages of time in creation to better understand the role of evil in the much larger context of the history of creation and of our Creator. There is some speculation about what exactly transpired in the past, but it is reasoned speculation based on years of studying the Bible and by comparing the biblical account of creation to information found in other accounts of history as told in various mythologies and in myths and legends of various cultures, and also by gleaning some nuggets of truth revealed in fictional accounts, especially in science fiction such as Star Wars movies, and in fantasy fiction such as Tolkien's Lord of the Rings books and movies, etc., and also in some of his other writings. Tales of celestial realms and terrestrial worlds, of gods, angels, men, and other creatures are found everywhere in our world. All information is based on some underlying truth. So much can be learned from the vast variety of sources of information in our world. Now, if I quote something, if I compare it to mythology, for example, I'm not saying that, all these accounts are the absolute truth. There is some truth in them, but I believe the entire truth, the whole history of creation, from beginning into the eternal future, is found only in the Bible. So if what we learn from these other sources can be confirmed by the Bible, then it should not be rejected. So let's go on to the ages of creation. Okay, evil did not exist in God's creation in the beginning. It came much later, after the heavens and the earth had been formed in perfection and inhabited. The history of creation itself can be divided into a pre-evil history of the perfect construction of the cosmos. The cosmos consists of the heaven, which is the city of God, and is the highest place in creation, seat of God's throne, and of the earth, home to corporeal creatures of flesh, and the heavens consisting of celestial bodies, the sun, the moon, and the stars, which are situated between the heaven and the earth. So the city of heaven is above. The heavens, which are the heavenly bodies, they are below that, and below the heavenly bodies is the earth. Okay. The cosmos was built over time in the first age of perfect creation, which was the golden age of creation. Time, which began when God first began to create, may be divided into several ages. The first age of perfection, called the golden age, before evil was born, and then followed by at least 3 more ages of time once evil had been born in God's creation to serve his purposes. These have been named the silver, bronze, and iron ages, as each age became progressively inferior from the previous one due to evil becoming darker in each successive age. Unlike mythological histories of creation, which begin in chaos, the biblical history of creation begins in perfection. In Greek mythology and in other mythologies, such as Hindu mythologies, time has been divided into various ages. So in Greek mythology, the history of creation was divided into various ages as recorded by the ancient Greek author Hesiod. In the Bible, time may be divided into at least 4 distinct ages. However, the history of the ages, of the events that transpired in those ages, is quite different in mythology compared to biblical history. So although they may be having the same names, the gold, silver, bronze, iron age, etc., the events and where these histories begin, they are quite different in the Bible as compared to what we read about in Greek mythology. For example, the Greek ages begin in chaos, whereas biblical creation began in perfection. In the Bible, chaos did not come till much later, as we read in Genesis chapter 1, verse 2, where the heavens and the earth were in a state of a ruined wasteland, flooded with water and covered with darkness. Creation was in a state of chaos. The pre-chaos history of creation, of the golden age of construction, and the origin of living creatures is not found in mythological accounts of creation. Hesiod's theogony begins with man already existing in the golden age. However, man, the creature formed from the dust of the ground in Genesis chapter 2, verse 7, did not exist for the first 3 ages of creation in the Bible. The first 3 ages, the gold, silver, and bronze ages, were not the ages of the man of the earth, called Adam. In Hesiod's division of time, there were 5 ages, the gold, silver, bronze, and the iron, but plus there was another additional age in it called the age of heroes, okay? So these first 4 ages of time in Hesiod's theogony, or in Greek mythology, the gold, silver, bronze, and the age of heroes, they actually all fit into just the one biblical iron age, okay? All of the events of the gold, silver, and bronze age, they are very much different in the Bible than they are in mythology. The history of the first 3 ages of construction and then of destruction that resulted from the birth of evil and a race of angels is not found in mythology. The first age of time was the age of creation and construction of the cosmos and of the creation of living creatures who would be the inhabitants of the heavens and the earth. This was most likely the longest of all the ages, since construction takes a lot longer time than destruction. I mean, to make a building will take a long time, but then you can just drop a bomb and destroy it in like seconds. So construction takes longer than destruction. To build takes much longer than to destroy. The cosmos was built by God and filled with life in the golden age. The biblical golden age of perfect creation of the cosmos, filled with living creatures, both in the celestial heavenly realms and on the earth, is summarized in Genesis chapter 1, verse 1. In the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth. This one verse of scripture contains the entire history of the golden age of perfect creation, and it probably lasted a lot longer period of time than the subsequent ages of evil, the silver, bronze, and the iron ages. The cosmos, called the universe in these days, consists of the following regions: the heaven, which is above and is the city of God, the seat of his throne; the earth, which is below, a terrestrial body meant to support corporeal life or bodily life; the heavens, which are the regions situated between the heaven above and the earth below, filled with celestial bodies like the sun, moon, and the stars. The Bible teaches of the building through wisdom That is, by planning and design of the entire cosmos by God. It also gives detailed information about the construction of the earth in Proverbs chapter 8 and in Job 38 and in other portions of Scripture. So neither the cosmos nor its inhabitants sprung up by themselves by random chance. Everything was designed and planned to perfection before anything at all came into existence. To create means to design and to plan. To make or to form means to execute the plans and bring into existence that was first designed in the mind. The Bible makes a distinction between creation and formation. Creation always precedes formation. Plans come before buildings. Before the evil ages of corruption, decay, and entropy, which resulted from evil that brought chaos and darkness described in Genesis 1-2, creation was perfect, inhabited by perfect creatures. It was not an empty void in a state of chaos. So before we study the history of evil and of evil creatures in creation, it is important to understand when it is in the timeline of creation, the timetable of creation, when was it that evil actually arose and then it grew up to become absolute darkness, as we see that covered the face of the earth in Genesis chapter 1 verse 2. So let me introduce you to the gap theory, which some of you must be familiar with. The gap theory, or rather gap fact, confirms a lengthy period of time between the perfect creation, the perfect beginning of creation in Genesis chapter 1 verse 1. Like I said, that one verse of scripture contains possibly millions of years of history, and the state of chaos described in Genesis chapter 1 verse 2. The first two ages of evil fall in this gap of time between Genesis chapter 1 verse 1 and chapter 1 verse 2, which is a gap of time of indeterminate length. Okay. So out of the four ages of creation, the first age of perfect creation is described in Genesis 1:1. The state of chaos in which creation is found to be in Genesis chapter 1:2 means that something happened between Genesis 1:1 and Genesis 1:2. As I stated, there is some truth in basically all information. That is, everything in this world is a lie, but all these lies are based upon the foundation of truths, upon some real history, upon some real events, and upon real creatures and peoples that have existed in the past. And one of these facts is that as indicated in Greek mythology, for example, where they talk about this chaos as the beginning, this chaos is definitely recorded in the Bible in Genesis chapter 1 verse 2. The way the earth is described, without form and void, and in mythology they say, and everything was just a gaping void out of which everything came, which is again coming from the Bible, because it does talk about the void, the darkness, the chaos, and then God reshaped and reformed everything. So yes, creation did begin in this time, in this age, from a state of chaos, but there was another history that predates that time of chaos, which is really found only in the Bible. So out of the four ages of creation, the first age of perfect creation is described in Genesis 1:1. The state of chaos in which creation is found to be in Genesis 1:2 means that something must have happened between Genesis 1:1 and Genesis 1:2. There is a gap of time of indeterminate length between these two verses of the Bible, which could have lasted tens of thousands or possibly even millions of years, or maybe even longer. The first two ages of evil, the Silver Age and the Bronze Age, fit into this gap of time between these two verses of Scripture. Chaos in creation arrived at the end of the Bronze Age. Genesis chapter 1 verse 2 is a perfect description of this chaos. God brought order out of this chaos by reforming and reshaping the earth and the heavens to make them suitable once again for habitation by man and by other creatures. The Masonic motto, the Masons have a motto, Ordo ab Chaos, which means order out of chaos. This is based on real history, because God did bring order out of this chaos that existed in Genesis 1:2, but it is being twisted by these occult and these other secret societies, etc., to mean something completely different. So now let's talk about the pre-evil and the post-evil ages of creation. The history of evil is a very lengthy one, beginning in a race of angels led by a powerful angelic being called the Anointed Cherub in the Bible. His story is told in Ezekiel chapter 28 and verses 12 through 19. Evil did not exist in God's creation in the beginning. It came much later, after the heavens and the earth had been formed and inhabited. The history of creation itself can be divided into a pre-evil history of the perfect creation of the cosmos and of intelligent living creatures such as angels and celestial men, the sons of God, who built worlds and inhabited them. The age of perfect creation, or the golden age of creation, was followed by various ages of evil, in which evil was born and matured and grew over time, eventually resulting in destroying much of the cosmos, leaving it in a state of chaos. The biblical age, the first biblical age of creation, may be termed the golden age, or the age of creation and construction of the cosmos, and the age of the creation of intelligent living creatures as well as beasts created to inhabit the heavenly realms and the earth. Genesis 1:1, in the beginning God created the heaven and the earth, is a brief description of this perfect golden age of creation. The two notable intelligent species of kind of creatures that God created in the beginning were the various races of celestial angels. These are ethereal spirit beings, and of celestial men, who are called the sons of God in the Bible. They are corporeal creatures of flesh. Various species of beasts were also created, who inhabited the celestial heavenly realms and also the earth. A leader, a commander, a prince from each one of these three categories of creatures, angel, man, and beast, have been the chief princes of evil in the various ages of evil. The golden age of perfect creation ended in Ezekiel chapter 28, verse 15, when iniquity or evil was first discovered in the Anointed Cherub, who was a high-ranking angelic being, and he was most likely second in command to God himself. Thus began the post-evil ages of creation, which have lasted into the present day. I mean, everybody can see evil still exists and will continue until the day of judgment in Revelation chapter 20. The ages that began once evil entered God's creation have three prominent divisions of time, in which three chief princes of evil have wielded their power, one an angel, one a man, and one a beast. The first father of evil is the Anointed Cherub. He is the originator of evil in God's creation. He was followed by Lucifer, who was a man, one of these sons of God men, who dethroned the Anointed Cherub to assume the crown of evil. And then finally today we have Satan, who is a serpent, dragon, beast, and he is the present-day prince of evil and darkness. So, the three ages of evil: silver, bronze, and iron. The silver age of evil of the Anointed Cherub and angelic creature, or the age of the evil of the angels, about whom we read in the scriptures in 2 Peter and in the book of Jude, among other places. The golden age ended in Ezekiel chapter 28, verse 15, when iniquity, as I can read in Ezekiel 28:15, thou, meaning the Anointed Cherub, was perfect in thy ways from the day that thou was created till iniquity was found in thee. I told you that evil did not start, creation did not begin in evil. It was found sometime after creation had already been started and progressed, in my opinion, a very, very long period of time in which the city of heaven was built, the heavens were built, the earth was built, it was filled with life. So, I mean, how long did those ages last, that golden age last? No idea, but it could have been tens of thousands, millions of years in our time, who only God knows. So the silver age of evil of the angels and of the Anointed Cherub, who was the leader of these angels, an angelic creature. The golden age ended in Ezekiel 28:15, when iniquity or evil was first discovered in the Anointed Cherub, a mighty prince of angels. Thus began the second age of creation, which is the first age of evil, the age in which the Anointed Cherub was crowned the chief prince of evil. Evil was born in this age and began to grow, and darkness began to slowly spread across creation, until, as we read in Genesis 1:2, it covered all of creation, just as planned by God. From the birth of evil to covering creation in darkness, as described in Genesis 1:2, was a very lengthy period of time, anywhere from tens of thousands to millions of years in length. This age of silver, evil of the angels age, was followed by the bronze age of the evil of celestial men, whose chief in the Bible is Lucifer. In Greek mythology, it would be somebody like a Zeus. The third age of creation, which was the second age of evil, was the age of Lucifer, who became the chief prince of evil, probably after the Anointed Cherub and his fellow evil angels were cast down to hell and imprisoned in chains of everlasting darkness, about which we can read in 2 Peter chapter 2, verse 4, and also in the letter of Jude in verse 6. Lucifer's story, which we shall study later, is written in Isaiah chapter 14, verses 12 to 20. And Lucifer was not an angel, but one of the races, a member of one of the races of celestial men called sons of God in the Bible. Many such men from the heavenly realms have been worshipped as gods in all cultures and tribes, and continue to be worshipped as gods in many parts of the world unto this very day. And the final age of evil, which is the present iron age of Satan, the serpent, dragon, beast. The present iron age is the fourth age of creation and the third age of evil in the Bible. Most people have been falsely led to believe that Satan was an angel in his origin and now is a fallen angel. He is said to have been a member of one of the races of angels who sinned and rebelled against God. The teaching that Satan was a mighty angel once but is now a fallen angel is not found anywhere in the Bible. The Bible clearly teaches that Satan is and has always been a serpent beast, calling him the old serpent in Revelation chapter 12 verse 9, for example, and in Revelation chapter 20 verse 2. Old, when the Bible calls this serpent the old serpent, old does not mean as having existed for a long period of time, but it means from the beginning. The Greek word old is archaeos, and it means old, expressing that which was from the beginning. And another word in Greek, which is the word palaios, it signifies age, old as having existed for a long period of time. So the Bible does not teach that Satan has existed in his present form for a long period of time, which could mean that he may have existed in some other form a long time ago, which is what's generally taught, that Satan was an angel and now he's a beast. Okay, that is not what the Bible teaches. The Bible clearly teaches that he was the old serpent from his very beginning. Jesus also taught that he was a murderer from the beginning, which is not true of the angelic being, the Anointed Cherub. As you can read, God said he was perfect. Rather, God called him perfect in beauty and full of wisdom, not a murderer. And but in John chapter 8, verse 44, and another portion of scripture, such as 1 John chapter 3, verse 8, it is taught that Satan, the devil, the present-day prince of evil, was a murderer and a sinner from the beginning. Though commonly taught that the Anointed Cherub, Lucifer, and Satan are one and the same creature, this is not from the Bible. This is not what the Bible teaches. The Bible clearly teaches that there are three princes of evil, three chieftains of evil, three rulers of evil who are distinct from one another. They're three different persons, and they ruled in three different ages of time at the very least. So the first prince of evil was the Anointed Cherub, who was an angelic being. Okay. The second prince of evil is the man Lucifer. You can read that in Isaiah chapter 14, his story, and in verse 16, it is clearly stated about him, "Is this the man that made the earth to tremble, that did shake kingdoms?" No, he was not an angel. He was a man, one of these sons of God, creatures of flesh and blood that originated up in heaven, and to whom the earth was first given a long time before Adam, who was formed from the dust of the ground, was made and placed in the Garden of Eden. And finally, today we have the last prince of evil, the third one. He is Satan, the serpent, dragon, beast. And you can read that clearly in scriptures, in Revelation 12:9, for example. And the great dragon was cast out, that old serpent. I just defined old for you here. That means the serpent from his beginning. He is called the devil and Satan. The first inhabitants of creation. The cosmos was built by God and filled with life in the golden age. It is very likely that the Anointed Cherub and other races of angels were created very early in the history of creation and were organized according to rank and position. God's kingdom has a definite hierarchy, like a military, and the citizens of heaven are not all of the same rank and order. One of God's titles is the Lord of Hosts, which means commander of armies. Angels are the highest and most powerful of God's intelligent creatures, and amongst the angels, the cherubim, plural of cherub, were probably the highest ranking ones, as well as the most powerful of all God's creatures. The first father of evil, the Anointed Cherub, was likely the general of the cherubim, the most powerful and of the highest rank amongst all the classes of angelic celestial beings. As the highest ranking of the cherubim, there was likely no other creature that rivaled this majestic royal prince in all creation. He truly was a godlike figure. The cherubim were witnesses to the creation of the cosmos, of various heavenly bodies, and of the earth. Most likely, they also saw and participated in the building of the city of heaven, the abode of God. They were also witnesses to the creation of life, of other living creatures being created by God, to knowledge of the technologies and the energies of creation, such as that of electricity and of sciences and genetics, that the Anointed Cherub acquired in the golden age of creation of the cosmos and of living creatures, will later be used by him for some very dark and evil purposes, such as in the creation of hybrid creatures by genetic mixing of body parts from different species, and creation of other abominable creatures and weapons that one might find in science fiction movies, for example, as in Star Wars. They even began to manufacture entirely new species of creatures, such as reptilians, serpents, and dragons, which is how Satan originated, in my opinion, that he was not created by God. Okay? Satan, the serpent dragon, is almost certainly a manufactured creature. His history will be researched later in this study. Again, as I mentioned earlier, that there is some speculation, but it is reasoned in the sense, because the Bible tells us that Satan was a murderer from the beginning, and God does not create evil. He doesn't create anyone evil. Okay? Therefore, if he was evil right from his beginning, then his creator would not have been God. He must have come into existence some other way. And this, in my opinion, is how it happened, that this is a manufactured creature. And can manufactured creatures have consciousness, have sentience, be able to think and to be like a person? Yes, very much so, very much so. Even today they talk about AI becoming self-aware and all those kind of things. That's all again based on some realities of the past. And one of these realities is that Satan and these reptilians, as they're called, or these creatures, they are not God's creatures that were created by him in the beginning. They were manufactured or created at some point in time through the knowledge of genetic sciences that these angels possessed and put to a very nefarious use in the ages of evil, in the Silver and the Bronze Ages. Such knowledge that these cherubim possessed made them godlike, so that in time, at least one of them, who was probably the most powerful and highest ranking of them all, and the most knowledgeable of them all, the Anointed Cherub began to think of himself as God. So on this topic of the origins of Satan and many other creatures that have existed, at least in the Bible and also in mythological stories and legends and myths, etc., there is some type of history that is associated with them. So let's study this topic of the programming of living creatures. In a recent teaching titled Who, What, When, How, and Why of Creation, evidence was presented from the Bible and from modern technologies, such as found in video games, that everything that exists, whether in a video game or in so-called real life, has an underlying encoding, a programming called genetics in modern times that defines and gives shape to an object or to a creature. Man has greatly advanced in his knowledge of programming languages. How great must have been the programming language and capabilities of the Anointed Cherub and his fellow angels, and even of the sons of God, celestial men like Lucifer, who were witnesses not only to the formation of the earth and of the heavenly bodies, but also of living creatures. They learned from the greatest programmer of all, from God the Creator himself. In the Bible, we are told he created everything by his word, which is like a software programming, which I discussed in that video that I just referenced. So they learned from the greatest programmer of all, from God the Creator himself, and armed with such knowledge, it was no big problem for them to create hybrid creatures by combining the programming or the genes of various creatures, and even to write programs for new species of organic sentient creatures, such as the reptilian races of serpents and dragons. They even genetically modified the programming of creatures created by God, such as the sons of God, celestial men, to produce giants, dwarves, trolls, ogres, and other such mythical creatures who have existed in the past and may still exist somewhere in creation, even possibly here on earth or inside the earth. If such abominable creatures did exist in the past, then they must have an origin that cannot be traced back to God. Therefore, the most logical explanation is that some of the intelligent creatures of God's original perfect creation, who possessed extensive programming, genetic knowledge, used their understanding to create such monstrosities, probably as weapons. Even now, like if you were to think of this logically, organic weapons such as beasts, whether it's crocodiles or sharks or other, like even like lions or tigers or whatever, these in a way are weapons, okay? They are used for destructive purposes. And therefore, such creatures, did they have an origin as weapons in the past, created to serve some master, most likely the Anointed Cherub in the beginning? I have no doubt that that's how a lot of them, such, fantasy creatures that really existed, came into being in the very, very, very distant past. Like I said, it could be tens of thousands or maybe even hundreds of thousands or millions of years. Only God knows for sure. So nothing is pure fiction in this world. Everything is based on some past or present reality. Truth is indeed much stranger than fiction.
Greek mythology is replete with tales of monsters and creatures that are both fascinating and terrifying. Here are 10 of the most dangerous creatures in Greek mythology. 10. The Cerberus, a three-headed dog that guarded the gates of the underworld. It was said that no one could pass by him without his permission. 9. The Sirens, beautiful creatures with the body of a bird and the head of a woman. They were known for their enchanting voices, which lured sailors to their deaths. 8. The Hydra, a serpent-like creature with multiple heads. For every head that was cut off, 2 more would grow in its place. 7. The Gorgons, 3 sisters with snakes for hair. Anyone who looked at them would turn to stone. 6. The Harpies, winged creatures with the face of a woman and the body of a bird. They were known for their sharp talons and their ability to snatch food from people. 5. The Chimera, a fire-breathing creature with the head of a lion, the body of a goat, and the tail of a serpent. 4. The Minotaur, a creature with the head of a bull and the body of a man. The Minotaur was kept in a labyrinth by King Minos of Crete. 3. Typhon, the most deadly monster of Greek mythology. The last son of Gaia, fathered by Tartarus, he was known as the father of all monsters. 2. The Cyclops, primordial giants that were said to have been born from Gaia, the earth. They were said to possess great strength and ferocity, with one bulging eye protruding from their forehead. 1. The Sphinx, a monster with the body of a lion, the head of a woman, and the wings of an eagle. The Sphinx is known for her role in the legend of Oedipus. Comment on this video if you think there is any other most dangerous creatures in Greek mythology. Subscribe to this channel for more videos.
So I included this short video in here, which is actually a well done one, to show you examples of these creatures that we are told are mythical. That means they are fictional, they never existed. But I 100% am convinced that they did indeed exist, and they may still exist, at least in disembodied form. They certainly continue to exist in this world. The evidence of them it's all over the earth in different cultures, different regions, different peoples, everywhere. So, to say that, none of this is actually true. Even today, if you go to southern India, for example, you can go to all the temples and you will see them carved, painted, and still worshipped as gods. So are they just like mythical, or were they real? I would have to say that they were very much real. As I mentioned earlier, my firm belief is that the real history of creation is contained only in the Bible, but we can learn from all the information that we come across in our lifetimes. And I have studied and learned a lot from mythology, science fiction, fantasy fiction, etc. And my conclusion is, based on all the things that we observe in this world, that we know must have existed at some point in time, that the history of creation is indeed much, 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 much older than we can even begin to imagine. For all these things to happen from that day in Ezekiel 28:15, where iniquity was first found in the Anointed Cherub, it didn't happen right that very moment that all these monsters just sprung up. It took a very, 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 very long time. The creation is built as stories. Even the Bible talks about the stories of heaven, which means there's a layer upon layer upon layer upon layer. And I believe all through the ages of time, layer upon layer upon layer has been added. Even if you can go down into the earth, you will see, they talk about 9 layers of hell, etc., the bottomless pit, and, Tartarus. These are all talked about in the Bible. There's going to be layers and layers and layers where you will find different worlds, different creatures, etc., that probably exist even to this very day. And this is a development of creation over the ages of time, which took, in my opinion, like at least in the tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, and millions of years, a long, long time for evil to become that complete darkness which covered the face of the earth in Genesis 1:2. That did not happen on the day iniquity was first found in the Anointed Cherub. It took ages of time to get to that stage. So what I've learned from my own experience is that in my younger days, before I understood the significance of these things, I came across a lot of information. Like I was a very voracious reader, and I read a lot of fiction books, etc. And I've watched a lot of science fiction TV shows and programs and movies. And now I understand that, there were certain details, there were certain truths in there that I can now understand because of my knowledge of the history of creation in the Bible. And when I compare those stories to what we read in some of these fictional accounts and in mythology, etc., it begins to make sense. So in mythology, cultural myths, folk tales and legends, science fiction and fantasy fiction, their stories are often based on real history and have some real historical truth in them, but not the full history of creation as documented in the Bible. One main difference is that they leave the creator out of the story of creation. Okay? That there is a one creator whose name is Jehovah, that you will read only in the Bible. So you can read in, for example, in Tolkien, he wrote a work called the Silmarillion, which has a history of creation that closely parallels the history of creation as we read in the Bible. So as I said, all information in our world is based on some underlying truth and some real history. It is very interesting that in Tolkien's creation history, it so closely parallels that of the creation history in the Bible. Various races and ranks of angels were first created in the Bible as well as in Tolkien's writings. The first father of evil in Tolkien's writings, Melkor, is a high-ranking member of an order of angels called the Valar. In the Bible, the first father of evil is the leader of a high-ranking order of angels called the Cherubim. Is this coincidence? Is this art imitating life, fiction based on truth? Truth is indeed stranger than fiction. The real biblical history of creation is far more interesting than any sci-fi like the Star Wars movies or any fantasy fiction such as J.R.R. Tolkien's Lord of the Rings. Now let's move on to, the reason I'm bringing you who were the first inhabitants of creation in the beginning were the angels, and there were also these men who were called sons of God. And they both played a significant role in the subsequent ages of evil. Therefore, we should understand a history of their origin a little bit at this before we get into the details of the sins and the evils of the angels and then of these Luciferian sons of men. Okay, these sons of God men, they were the second species of intelligent creatures created by God. The second significant species of intelligent creature created by God in the Golden Age were the sons of God, who are celestial men, created in the heaven, the city of God, even before the earth was formed. These first creatures of flesh, bodily corporeal creatures, are celestial like the angels, for they too originated in heaven, not on the earth, for the earth did not yet exist. But they are an entirely different species than the angels. They were the first men in creation, celestial men, men from the sky, some of whom later turned to evil and began to call themselves gods. The gods of mythology, for example, Zeus, Odin, Apollo, and other gods of various cultures and tribal peoples from around the world were not angels, but celestial men. They also witnessed the earth being designed and formed by God and shouted for joy when they saw it coming into existence as their future home, about which you can read in the book of Job in chapter 38 and verses 4 to 7. They built the first worlds on this earth, marvelous technological wonder worlds like Atlantis. These celestial men, the sons of God, are similar to terrestrial man, the man of the earth, Adam and his children, the present day inhabitants of the earth. So yes, although there are the men, what we call men or creatures of flesh and blood, they have existed since almost the beginning of creation. But celestial men and terrestrial men need to be differentiated because they both have a different role in God's creation. Terrestrial means man of the earth, man formed from the earth, who was Adam and Eve in the Garden of Eden, and then their offspring. These celestial men, the sons of God, were flesh and blood, just like Adam, the terrestrial man formed from the dust of the ground. Though genetically similar or even compatible, celestial sons of God men and Adam, man of the earth, and his offspring are different species like horse and donkey. The celestial sons of God men originated in heaven, the city of God, before the earth was formed. They also had access to the heavenly realms and had far superior technology than the terrestrial man of the earth. They also seem to have been blessed with great longevity or even immortality as opposed to the short lifespan of Adam and his children. That's why these Greek gods, gods of Greek mythology, etc., they call themselves immortals. So again, another example of art imitating real life or reality is again found in the writings of Tolkien, the author of The Lord of the Rings. He is, J.R.R. Tolkien is best known for his trilogy of books titled The Lord of the Rings. In his writings, a prominent species of man-like beings are called elves. They're quite different from Santa's elves in that they are majestic and royal, live long, are almost immortal, like the gods of mythology, and existed before man of the earth was created, just like the sons of God of the Bible, who came into existence long before the first man of the earth was formed from the dust of the ground. Once again, we see a great deal of parallels between fictional histories of creation and the biblical account of creation. Though mythology and fiction may be entertaining and have some truth in them from which we can learn greater details about the history recorded in the Bible, they are far from the whole truth, which is found only in the Bible. The biblical history of creation is the history of the Creator, whereas in all the other histories, including that which is offered by science, it is just a history of creation. That creation created itself without a creator. That, my friends, like the Greeks say, it came out of the great void and out of the chaos. No, that is not what the Bible teaches. The Bible clearly tells us that there is an intelligent creator who has designed and created and powered everything that exists. Interestingly, in Tolkien's writings, the elves, who are physically almost indistinguishable from men, were also immortal or blessed with great longevity. We're talking like thousands of years, okay? So these stories, again, like I said, they have a foundation in truth. And it is my opinion now that the sons of God, we use the word sons, but they had gender, that they were male and female. Like, for example, in the stories of Greek mythology, the first generation of gods, the Titans, they also had male and female, and then the next one, which were the Olympians, they too were both male and female. It is possible, not just possible, it is highly likely that in the beginning, in the Job 38, verse 7, it says, all the sons of God shouted for joy. So it seems like, there was a number of them, and it is my speculation that God made at least 6 pairs, 6 male, 6 female in the beginning, or maybe 12 and 12, which would kind of fit in with the 24 elders that are sitting around the throne of God in heaven in the book of Revelation, which again, it is my opinion that they are not of the race of Adam, but they are the celestial sons of God, those who did not rebel against God and turn to evil like these gods of mythology. Yeah, they are not the group of the sons of God that rebelled against God, but they are those who have continued following him since their creation, and therefore they're called elders in the book of Revelation. That is my speculation, and again, I do not speculate, but I'm certain that the sons of God, they do have gender, and therefore they were able to have offspring and to fill the earth just the same way that Adam and Eve did later on in the Iron Age. Since the celestial sons of God and man of the earth, Adam and his offspring, are both flesh and blood, technically they're both men, yet also vastly different. The present day races of man on earth cannot all be traced to Adam and Eve, but have resulted from relations between the celestial sons of God, of whom there are many races, where Adam is just one race. These sons of God, celestial men, were genetically compatible with the man from the earth. They were able to mate with the daughters of Adam, as happened in Genesis 6, where the sons of God took wives of the daughters of Adam and produced mighty offspring, who were the heroes of old, like Hercules or Heracles in Greek, called mighty men of renown in the Bible. Hesiod's ages of man, which I referred to previously, has a fifth age in it as opposed to the 4 ages of time in the Bible. This fifth age he called the age of heroes. In the Bible, this is not a separate age, but the first part of the Iron Age from Adam to Noah, when terrestrial mankind, children of Adam, lived long lives and built worlds on earth whose ruins still exist unto this day. After the sons of God, men from the heavens, cohabited with the daughters of Adam and had children with them, these children became the heroes of the age of heroes, or the age of the mighty men of renown in the Bible. See, again, these stories, they come from somewhere. They are confirmed from what we read in the Bible. It's just that, when you go to church, you don't learn anything about the Bible. Church exists to dumb you down about the knowledge of God. Therefore, we have to study it for ourselves and to see what it is really teaching us. The golden age of construction and building changed to the silver and bronze ages of destruction and ruin once evil was discovered in the Anointed Cherub, which soon spread to more angels in the heavens and to the celestial men on the earth. So now let's begin looking at in detail at the history of the Anointed Cherub and of the race of angels that turned to evil and sinned against God. The Anointed Cherub is the father of evil in the history of creation. His rule of evil as the chief prince, the first chief prince of evil, began in the Silver Age. Although he was created in the Golden Age, the reason the Golden Age changed into the Silver is because of this creature's evil, which we read about in Ezekiel 28:15, that thou, meaning the Anointed Cherub, was perfect in thy ways from the day that thou was created, till iniquity or evil was found in thee. So once evil was found in this creature, creation itself began to enter a period of decay and destruction and warfare and all the other evils, some of which I have already mentioned, okay? That's why this age was not like the Golden Age. It had corruption in it, and that's why it's called the Silver Age. Evil was born in a race of angelic beings called the Cherubim, whose leader was a very high and powerful prince called the Anointed Cherub. He is the father of evil in God's creation. Before iniquity or evil was found in him, there was no evil or darkness or decay or corruption, only perfection in the cosmos and in the living creatures that God created. God's creation and his creatures began in perfection. Corruption and decay came later through the Anointed Cherub and his partners in evil. The history of the Anointed Cherub is recorded in Ezekiel 28 in verses 12 to 19. In the present time, it is impossible to accurately depict what this cherub, plural form of which is cherubim, looked like, but I would venture to say that in appearance he must have been awe-inspiring, clothed in gold and precious jewels, with a voice like a trumpet, and majesty far surpassing that of any earthly or even any heavenly being other than of God himself. There had to have been some compelling reasons for him to rebel against God, in whose presence he stood since his very beginning. So he had been given great power by God from the time he was created, and over time he witnessed the expansion of the cosmos and the creation of various species of living creatures, especially of the celestial sons of God, men, whom I believe that those races of those celestial sons of God were created after these races of angels had already come into existence. And having been gifted with the intelligence to understand more than any other creature, including the science of life itself, he began to think of himself as God. His power and majesty must have been so great that even an untold number of angels and other creatures, such as some of the races of the celestial sons of God, men, followed him in his rebellion and in his sins against God. So once evil had been born in the Anointed Cherub, who is the father of evil in creation, many angels and other creatures, such as the celestial sons of God, men, joined him in his rebellion against God. This rebellion too has a long history. Though not detailed in the Bible, its history can be pieced together from the Bible and from various mythological accounts from around the world. For example, in Greek mythology are found many stories of gods, such as those of the Titans and the Olympians and their wars and exploits. These angels that sinned against God are now chained in the lowest regions of hell, awaiting the day of judgment. Incidentally, in Greek mythology, the Titan gods too were locked away in Tartaru or Tartarus, which are the lowest regions of hell. So the question then arises, when were these levels created? When was hell created, for example? Okay, as to when it was built and by whom. So it is very probable that these rebel angels are the same as the Greek Titans, the first generation of the so-called gods, whose stories have been handed down to us in fictional form as mythology. See, again, that's why in mythology they have generations of gods as they do in the Bible. It was the angels, then it was the Luciferian men, and then it's the beasts. And that's why there are generations. They're not all the same. So the Bible too does confirm that the celestial heavens themselves and the host, that is the inhabitants of these heavens, have generations. We can read that in Genesis chapter 2, beginning in verse 1. Thus the heavens and the earth were finished, and all the host of them. And on the seventh day God ended his work which he had made, and he rested on the seventh day from all his work which he had made. And God blessed the seventh day and sanctified it, because in it he had rested from all his work which God created and made. These are the generations of the heavens and of the earth when they were created, in the day that the Lord God made the earth and the heavens. These are the generations, okay? So yes, just like in mythology they have generations of gods and of the cosmos, so too it is in the Bible. And therefore the biblical account again confirms many of these mythological stories and from other myths and legends around the world. Mythological histories have a great deal of truth in them, but the whole truth is found only in the Bible. Now we will begin to study the Anointed Cherub himself and his history from the Bible to learn more about him and his world. As far as these angels being locked away in hell, you can read that in 2 Peter chapter 2, verse 4. For if God spared not the angels that sinned, but cast them down to hell, and delivered them into the chains of darkness to be reserved unto judgment. And that word hell is Tartaru or Tartarus. So again, you find these common elements like these Titans being locked away in Tartarus, the Anointed Cherub, and these angels being locked away in Tartarus. So where do these stories originate? Are they all fiction, or is there truth in them? And I would say that they are true. That these stories of the Titans and gods and everything is based upon the real history of these so-called fallen angels.
Everybody's running from the sound of the thunder. Everybody's running, and Lord, it's no wonder. But all they've got to do to find help is turn around and look right up to Jesus. looking for